This podcast is brought to you by ConnectFirst Credit Union. Today, I think we have a really, really great show. We have a special guest that I'll introduce in a moment, but let's talk a little bit about the future. You know, there's been a little bit of a resurging confidence in some quarters of the province with the price of oil improving and so on, but at the end of the day, I think that just kind of is a little bit of a cover on the fact that we're still undergoing a lot of change as a province. And we know we need to continue this economic transition that we've been going through for the past many years. We know what happens when we don't. And obviously, this province is going to be better off as we continue to diversify the economy and we diversify our communities to create more stability and resilience for a really bright future as a province. And that's why we started the show in the first place. We wanted to talk about that future, and which we think is a really exciting and a future that brings with it a ton of opportunities for everyone who wants to be a part of it. And in a world where we see so many folks focusing on the negative, we want to have a conversation around the positive and what's possible and what we can accomplish together. And today, I have someone on the show, his name's Terry Rock, who's been disrupting things from the very beginning. Everything he touches, he has found ways to change the world, literally right here at home in Alberta. No different today with what he's taking on. And Terry, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Terry, introduce yourself. Tell our audience who you are and what you're about.
Well, I am the president and CEO of Platform Calgary. Platform Calgary is focused on building a high-performance innovation ecosystem in Calgary, Alberta, as part of the whole Alberta economy. And we're about to open the Platform Innovation Center, 50,000 square feet, Calgary's home for innovators, a true front door for innovation in the city. And I got a PhD in Texas at Texas Tech University, and I was hired by the University of Calgary to be a prof in the management school. And I learned after about 2.5 years that wasn't for me and started on a journey that led me to where I'm at now. Yeah.
Well, you've done some interesting things, so we should at least talk a little bit about them, because I think there was being involved with breweries for a while. So tell us a little bit about your background.
A good friend of mine, Jim Button, was one of the founders of Village Brewery and gave us an opportunity to be a small investor as they put together this big crew of beer barons to invest in the brewery. And I got to know a bit about the brewing industry, and I ran for election in 2015 and thankfully didn't win. Learned what I needed to learn and got away from that. And we were at a village shareholders meeting, and they were talking about this crazy regulations that were and the way that the markups were applied to breweries. And it was a stopper on growth. It was just didn't make any sense. And I was kind of looking for something to do at the time and said, I think I could help with this. I kind of know the government world a little bit. And Joe Ceci was the finance minister, and he had been on my board when I was the president of Calgary Arts Development Authority. And I just started down the path of seeing what we could do to sort of say, this doesn't make sense. And the industry all rallied together. So I became the executive director eventually of the Alberta Small Brewers Association. We built a whole tourism strategy. At the time, I think we went from something like 25 breweries to about 90 in about 3 years when I was doing that job. We got local beer into the Calgary Stampede, which was a big coup in, I think, 2017. And I left that the day after the first annual Alberta Beer Awards. I interviewed for the job which is now called Platform Calgary. But before that, the other parts were Calgary Arts Development Authority, so really pulling together a strategy to make arts and culture a core part of the Calgary experience. It always was, but could we get strategic about how we invest? Through that, we built, it was a $165 million fund to invest in infrastructure for arts and culture in the city. As a result, we got the National Music Center, we got the Nickel Museum at the university, we got Bella Concert Hall, we got Folk Festival Hall, we have the new opera thing that's going to be part of the Stampede, and we built C-Space Projects, which is an arts incubator, and transformed a whole city block in Southwest Calgary to support artists. So I was in there being part of that process, but it was like a cast of thousands that did all the work.
Pretty incredible, though, when you talk about impact and actually changing the world. And we're talking about changing the future of Alberta. Yeah. You're somebody who's been changing things for a long time.
Yeah, I guess. I sort of think I find myself in these situations that are ripe for, someone to say, we can do this. And like, why don't we just kind of let go of where we've been for a bit and just start on a new path? And people have been receptive to me asking those questions.
I love that. So tell us a little bit about Platform.
Yeah, so this is sort of not relevant, and my team is always telling me, don't talk about this so much, but it's a 41-year-old organization. It started in 1981 as the Calgary Research and Development Authority, and we're about the fourth or fifth kind of version of it. The bones are all still there. But what I love about it is that it was created in 81, and Calgary in 81 was kind of riding a wave, and it was only a year later that things really started to go south, and it was 5 years later that the provincial government put economic diversification and technology in particular as one of the strategies to diversify the economy on the provincial agenda. So this organization, I say, has always been about preparing our city for what's coming next. And so our mission is empowering people building the next economy, because there's always going to be a next one, and are we ready for it as a city? The sort of core word for us on the mission or vision side is shared prosperity. We don't want to be a place where or create a situation where just the rich get richer. It truly is about everyone being part of this story and creating an inclusive and welcoming environment for innovation. The Platform Innovation Center is our signature project. We've sort of built done a bunch of things to open this 50,000 square foot space right across from the new Central Library in East Village. There's 4 hubs inside it. There is a startup training and mentorship hub under the name Startup Calgary. There is a talent and hiring hub. So to diversify the economy, we need people in those jobs.
Right on.
There is an industry and enterprise innovation hub. So things like in the ag sector. So we've got a bit of a cluster around ag tech. We've got a clean tech one.
Great.
We did something in music. And then finally, an investor hub. And so we see a lot of people in Calgary that are interested in being part of the story of growing the next economy. It's a new asset class for a lot of people. So we're really trying to engage investors, family offices, and we pull that all together with a real focus on culture and connectivity. So a lot of events, a lot of talk about values and sharing. And the end of that is tripling the size of the tech sector over the next 10 years, which is tens of thousands of jobs of the future. And that means we have to go 10 times faster now. That's what we're about.
Right on. And I think we're all sick of talking about the pandemic, but
yeah.
An organization like Platform that brings so many people together, how have you been managing to continue to share the word and make progress?
What's very interesting is we bought the building that the project in December of 19.
Yeah.
And so 4 months later, it's kind of like, does anybody even want a building anymore of any kind? And we had to sell another building to do this all. Anyway, that had some stress moments in that.
I bet.
But what was very interesting is we could see it coming. I remember writing a note to our team and saying, okay, be ready to go online. And they were ready. And so we put all of our programs online. And frankly, it has opened up the number of people we can serve. So we have gone from serving about 400 entrepreneurs or founders or their companies in 2019 to over 600 in 2020 to over 900 last year.
That's great.
And what we've learned is that online digital experiences are good for some things, and there are some things that we just aren't getting what we need. And so having a space like our Innovation Center is going to be very useful in that. Our project has some philanthropic components, and that has been tougher for people to find ways to contribute to this kind of a thing. But frankly, we've raised over $5.5 million from generous people in our community. Corporations have come to the table and government. So the project's financials are looking good. So it's all around. The net for us is that it's probably a year later than we had hoped to be open. But during that year, nobody really wanted to be in this kind of space anyway. So the net is kind of okay for us. Yeah.
There you go. So it's worked out well.
Yeah. And one other interesting thing about our building is that because early on, and we started knowing that air quality was going to be really important. We've had people who are very much focused on safety of public buildings and public gathering. And our air quality is almost as good as outside. It's just like barely different than being outside. Wow. So that's a bonus that we're going to be able to advertise here shortly.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So a lot of our audience may be wondering, like, what does the technology innovation sector look like in Calgary? You know, you read the newspaper, you hear it's growing, but but you know, at the end of the day, we still see the towers full of conventional businesses and so on. So what is it looking like?
Well, a few years ago, we started getting very serious about metrics and like what difference are we actually making? Because there's a large public investment going into this work. We started mapping tech companies against the employee, like how many employees they have. And we've got actually a really interesting map that I currently, I think it's about 870 companies that we're tracking. These are mostly software companies that have high growth potential. There's some hardware in there and a few other companies. And then it's a distribution. So we have some very large companies like Benevity, Morgan Stanley Shareworks, which was Solium, that have grown. Even Shaw is a local success story of a tech-based company. These are large employers. And then it kind of has a bit of a bell curve down to where we spend most of our time is on companies that are under 5 employees that are really in that startup phase. You know, we see it as, can we create 60 new companies a year? I think we're tracking something like 12,000 employees that were in these kinds of high growth potential companies in Calgary. We think that could be 35,000 to 40,000. Another interesting thing is that, you know, we're an oil and gas city. So is, you know, what percentage of those companies serve oil and gas? It's a large number, but it isn't as big as you'd think. And what's been very interesting is to see financial services tech companies, for example, spring up, and even like Benevity, Helsum, Cement. These are all companies that are kind of in that, you know, financial element is part of what they're doing. And Calgary is just really seeing a surge in these kinds of startups. So that's really interesting to see. Neo Financial, another one. And I think that has to do with the fact that we're a head office heavy city. And so there's a lot of kind of back office transaction kind of stuff. So we're going to see lots of tech along those lines. The big opportunities, I think, are in, and we're seeing some really interesting activity around clean tech. Anything that is driving us towards net zero is a huge opportunity for Calgary. And there's a lot of activity there and a lot of investor interest in seeing that happen. We also have some interesting transportation and logistics type companies. I'm actually this afternoon going down to Adabotics to see their 3-dimensional warehouse technology that is, you know, part of the fulfillment revolution that's happening as we move to e-commerce. So kind of everything is going on right now. Oh, I should mention ag tech. With a number of players, we're actually a little bit of an ag tech cluster happening. Interestingly, in ag tech, there's more opportunity than there are companies right now. So we need to actually increase the number of early stage ag tech companies we have. So we got some ideas around that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And in industry we're very interested in. In fact, you know, agriculture, big part of our business.
Yeah.
So we're certainly looking to grow that at ConnectFirst. And I love that you mentioned Helsum. We announced a partnership with Helsum just recently. I think we're one of their first Canadian financial institutions to actually build a partnership with them. So
there's so many things that I love about that company. One is that they've been bootstrapping for many years. And, you know, we think of tech startups as 2 people in a garage, and they kind of come up with something that is their growth engine. And Helsum was really, it's like solving problems all along the way and learning about their customers. And then they went, okay, we're going to invest in a new, like, complete pivot. And then that is now their new,
that's awesome,
their new growth trajectory. But they also make a commitment to hiring young people and training them. They're a one to watch. So interesting, so cool. Glad
we're going to do our best to stay on your radar too, Terry. So we're reinventing a credit union for the 2020s, and we are actually the largest financial institution headquartered in Calgary. And so we want to play our part to be supporting more fintechs grow right here.
Well, I mean, the story there is that, you know, people say tech is an industry. It is an industry. Technology is created, but also tech should be 5 to 8% of your GDP, pure tech. The other 95 to 92% is driven by tech. Right. And if you aren't on it, if you aren't thinking about how is artificial intelligence going to change our business, doesn't matter what business 100%. You're in, you're going to be behind. So this is where I think of like the next economy. I want Calgary to be a city where we're all kind of in that conversation, and that Calgary itself gives you a competitive advantage as you grow your business because of that.
Love that. So what is innovation? Like when you think about it, like you're supporting it, you're helping grow it. What is it?
To me, it's the process of solving problems. At the end of the day, it's actually solving a problem. And then if you really want it to be something that is adapted, then it's that people actually want. A lot of our work is, talking to people who I would call inventors, who are coming up with ways to create something that does something, but that might not actually solve a problem.
Right.
And to me, innovation is bringing together that invention with a problem, and it's actually creating something that's valuable. And then to be truly innovative, it has to spread. It has to change. I would say one of our superpowers is when our programming is helping people understand how to listen to people and determine what problems there are to solve, and then take that back into the business and put it into practice with new code or a new design or whatever it might be, and then take it back out again and keep doing that and learn how to do that fast. There's so many different ways you can define it. I did a PhD in innovation, so
you know every way. You know every definition.
I know all the things, and I can cite back to the '60s probably still. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Well, a question I have for you is like, you had a big impact on the arts community here in the city, and now you're having a big impact on innovation and how we're going to innovate as the business community and society here. What are the parallels between? Because not a lot of people would think like, what do artists over here and innovators over there have in common?
The system level is kind of where I work, so I'll talk about that first. At the system level, what you have is a fairly fragmented ecosystem, call it. We overuse the word ecosystem, but it's a fragmented ecosystem. Lots of small players. And that if we look at the future of our city, those small players, they need to be thriving. If you just think about what do we want our city to be like in the next 5 or 10 years, artists, innovators, creators, business people of all kinds need to be thriving, but it's like a small dispersed group. And so what they have in common is there are things that you can do at the system level or society level that make it more likely that they're going to be successful. They're going to find the support they need. In our case, with our tech founders, they're going to be connected to someone who can invest in them, someone who can give them advice, someone who's going to buy their product, someone is a channel for their product, someone's going to work for them. If we are a city where those connections can happen faster and they're higher quality, then that system goes faster.
Right on.
At the core of them, actually, the most successful artists are entrepreneurial in the fact that they see what's coming. They can assemble the resources and do something that's going to resonate into whatever those trends might be. So when I look, the commonality is a spirit of entrepreneurship, and entrepreneurial individuals are at the core of that. And so then it's pretty easy for me to just say, same with brewers. Like brewers are like the combo of the two. They're artists and they're technicians and entrepreneurs. If we're a city where people like that just are like, oh, this city gets me, then I think we're going to be good. So that's where I put my focus. Yeah.
That's very cool. Are there any stories you can share about particular organizations that are really inspiring you right now, that are innovating, changing, starting something completely new?
It's kind of like picking your favorite kid. Because here's how I describe my job is like every day I am surrounded with people who believe that they've got something that is going to be big, that's going to change the world in some way or just, create something really cool. And they're pursuing it with passion.
Yeah.
No one is complaining in this space, right? We have people who come in who have like crazy ideas that are just never going to work. And we have people with really smart businesses that are you just think, why didn't I think of that? And I kind of love all of that equally. I will say there's one group in town, they're in Alberta actually, that I think is changing the game. It's not a specific company. It's called Startup TNT. TNT stands for Thursday Night Tradition. And basically it started in Edmonton where these guys got together every Thursday for beers, and they started pooling their money and then running competitions to find startups to invest in. And then through the process, they were training each other how to invest and do due diligence. And then they started like building this community, and then they expanded to Calgary, and now they expanded to Saskatoon, and they're putting like millions of dollars a year now in, and it's people are putting in small amounts of money, and they're part of the process of learning how to invest. And it is such a passionate crowd, and I think that's an indicator of the kind of thing that's going to happen more and more here, where non-traditional investors are going to be part of the story of growing the tech ecosystem in Calgary. Non-traditional, the support is going to come from non-traditional places. The founder is named Zach Storms up in Edmonton, and he is just one of the most enthusiastic, generous people that I've met. And it just comes through, and that is infused throughout the Startup TNT whole community. So we're really excited to have them as part of our community.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
So we're kind of getting towards the end of the show, but one of the questions I have for you is your advice to us at ConnectFirst. Like we'd be one of Canada's largest credit unions. We know we need to change. So we're committed to doing that, to be more relevant to our members, to make sure that we're providing the experiences they look for. That means we need to be transforming ourselves and innovating in the way we bring services. But what advice would you have for us as a credit union, how we can contribute to a more prosperous Alberta and Calgary in the future?
So one of the things I love about just credit unions generally is that it's actually about a grassroots thing where we're all helping each other.
Yeah.
Like we're all there together, pooling together to make, to bring something up. So I believe that one of the biggest areas that we as a whole province could do is to find a way to think about risk differently. We are a boom and bust place. And so in a good time, you're always afraid that if you stretch yourself too far, that it's going to come crashing down. And when you're in a lean time, why would you do it in the first place? What's the leveler in that? And it's like to have a very long-term perspective, to find a way to create a portfolio of bets on people. The risk profile is going to even itself out over time. And I know in institutions, that's hard to do because risk is always kind of looked at on a point-by-point basis.
Right.
And you're managing an individual risk. And so somehow, especially when it comes to this entrepreneurial place, we have to find a way to be more bold in investing in people with early stage ideas. When I think about the evolution that we have to go through, where we are right now, it's a brutal fact of reality. We're losing people, we're losing capital, we're losing businesses, we're losing tech to other places. The difference comes when we are an attractor,
right?
When we're a net attractor. The only way we can be a net attractor is if we're investing in those people before they are fully proven.
Right.
So somehow, you can play a leadership role in that kind of a thing, I think.
I appreciate that, Terry, and we're working on that for sure. And now you have a front row seat to sort of what's next in Alberta.
Yeah.
And that's the name of our show.
Yes.
So what's your prediction for Alberta in the decade ahead?
So I'll pick one area that the energy transition, the drive to net zero presents to us. I happen to be on a call this morning with someone who's got a global view, and they're looking at places around the world to invest. And it is so clear to me that the people we have here, the problems we're trying to solve, that the world needs Alberta to be a leader in this particular agenda. And that the way to get there is just assembling all the things that we already kind of know we're good at. Like we know the energy industry inside and out.
Yep.
We know how to make it more sustainable and contribute to that. The prediction I have is that Alberta actually becomes known as one of the most innovative leading thinkers on how this happens. And it's driven by innovation, entrepreneurship, smart capital, ultimately, these really smart Albertans that are in that industry. And that alongside that, you're going to have a whole bunch, astounding number of really cool, high growth tech companies that are this is so synergistic that the creativity that's going into that is flowing back over into these other companies. And so in financial services, in ag tech, we've got some stuff going in the creative industries that you're just going to see, we're going to be one of the most dynamic, innovative entrepreneurial economies in Canada.
Right on. And now, if you want to make sure our audience knows one or two things that you want to make sure it hit home about Platform Calgary, a message you want to get out there, what would that be?
One of the most important things for Platform Calgary is that we're building a front door for people who have ideas, who are innovators. And when they walk through that door, in 15 minutes, they're going to get connected to what they need to get connected to. And that truly anyone is welcome. It doesn't matter where you're at. It doesn't matter, whether, what you think of what you're doing. This is a community that's going to support you at every stage of the journey. So don't hesitate to walk through that door in June when it's open.
Terry, it's been nothing short of an honor to have you on the show, and we're all cheering for you. You're doing great work for our city. We're very grateful for what you do for us, so thank you.
Well, thanks for being there with us as well and for what you're doing.
Thank you. Next steps. Thank you, Terry Rock, for joining us on the show here. Great guest and, great change maker, change agent in our city. He's done it before. He's continuing to do it. And what I'm really excited about when we're thinking about what's next in our province, the name of the show, What's Next Alberta, is that what makes me feel good is that we've got people like Terry who are bringing together folks who are truly trying to change the world. And he's seeing it every day. A few of his comments that really stick with me are like creating that front door to the future, which Platform has certainly been doing for us already and will continue to do into the future. And some good advice for us as a credit union. How are we going to think differently around how we support those future innovators by getting in there earlier? And it's certainly a conversation we're having at ConnectFirst. We want to play our part in building a brighter future in this province. And finally, and I think this is something that we all have to work on together, is, he talked about what is innovation. Well, it's an inventing a solution to a problem. We all have a collective challenge here in this province, and that is to create a brighter future that's sustainable for everyone. And we all have to work together to do that. So thank you for listening to our show here today. And if you liked what you heard, share it with your network and be sure to subscribe. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on What's Next Alberta.